What's going on, you guys? This is the Kentucky Renaissance Man. I'm driving back from a job down in Tennessee I went to check on a few minutes ago, and a little bit frustrating. It's getting harder and harder to find not just good help, but help in general. People are just sitting at home. They're not getting out there. I'm not sure what the deal is. It's pretty disappointing. I had a really good subcontractor that has worked for me on several projects. He's actually started this one down here, the carpentry, doing the subfloor and stuff, and he's about 2.5 hours away from where this project's at, and he's been commuting back and forth and staying on the project. I've got a big fifth wheel camper set up there for him. Anyway, long story short, his whole crew refused to come back this week, and so they quit on him and went and started another smaller project closer to home, which, you know, in one way you can't blame them. And on the other hand, it just got me to thinking while I left, because it's devastating to small contractors and small builders when the only 3 or 4 guys they have that work with them walk off and leave them. And I've experienced that personally several times through the years. And you know, you train people, you work with people, you help them out, you loan them tools, you loan them trucks and trailers, and when their car breaks down, you let them have whatever they need. And as a small business owner and a small businessman, it's difficult sometimes to make ends meet yourself while you're trying to help all your guys out and make sure their families can make ends meet. And you know, I say in the old days, I'm not even that old, but when I grew up working as a teenager and then as a young man 30 years ago, I worked among 40, 50, 60-year-old men, and there was a tremendous amount of pride and loyalty in their jobs and where they were at, and the fact that they had worked for the same guy or the same company for 30, 40 years. The guys that owned those businesses that I worked for all those years ago, they had a tremendous amount of loyalty to their men. And so as I grew up and worked around them, I always thought it was my responsibility, whether I worked for someone or whether I was the boss and ended up owning the company, that loyalty mattered. But through thick and thin, and when the jobs are close and when they're far away, and whatever it takes, because we're all in it together. And we hear that as a tagline today in just about everything that we do anymore, especially since COVID, that we're all in this together. But I don't think they are. I don't think most people are in it together. There's very, very few loyal people out there. It's getting very frustrating and disheartening. It's been this way for a few years, but it's been amplified in a lot of ways by the society and the times that we live in. And just I don't know if I'd go so far as to just say it's selfishness, but it seems like that's what's driving it. People are in it for themselves, and that's it. And you know, whether you're trying to build a business, or whether you're involved at church, or whether you are looking at your family, extended family, it's like everybody just wants something from you all the time, and they don't want to put anything back. I remember reading a Stephen Covey book, and he was talking about putting in deposits and doing withdrawals. I don't remember exactly what step that was, but it was a pretty impactful point that, you know, in every relationship there has to be a certain amount of deposits put into the relationship so that somebody can make withdrawals. And if you don't have that balance of inputs and by all the parties, then the relationship very quickly becomes one-sided and just kind of falls apart. And that's what my friend, my subcontractor, is going through right now with his crew. And of course, it affects everybody outside of him. It affects me. It'll affect my company. It'll affect our crews. We're gonna try and regroup tomorrow and figure out how to go get some of the work done that he was supposed to do this week, because we've got other things planned down the line and other subcontractors that are ready to go. And and all of it affects everybody, and it's because of 2 or 3 people that didn't follow through with what they said they would do in their commitment to their relationship. And because of that little breakdown, it's gonna cascade a whole lot of other issues that they have no idea that they're affecting. They're just in it for themselves, you know. Another dollar, another 50 cents makes a big difference to them. And you know, in this day and time, as tight as things are, I don't blame them in one way, but in another way, stability in your life is worth a lot. If you're somebody out there working for somebody right now, and they've been going at it, providing you a living and providing you a place to work and some security and stability in your life, and giving your family a place to feel stable while you pay for your house or your vehicles or your farm, or maybe you're starting a side business, side gig that'll eventually become a great company and you'll be able to get out on your own, and they're giving you that protection and that cover to do that while you're working for them. Give them 100%. 100% all the time. 110% would be better, but 100% is what you traded for. When you said you would work for them and they would pay you, and that was the relationship was going to be based on that, then give them 100%, and make sure that they know you appreciate them as much as they appreciate you there, and work on that relationship. Make it reciprocal, back and forth. There's give and take. There's always room for improvement, obviously, but when you realize what we're going into with the economy and with the recession and maybe a depression down the road, and winter is coming on, and it always amazes me how people see that green grass on the other side and they're like, well, I'm missing out on whatever it is, and then they come back during the recession last go around back in 2007 and 8 when it started. We started seeing signs of the recession late 2007, and by 2008 there was bankruptcies happening everywhere. And thankfully we were still really busy through 2008, but eventually our work slowed down. And in 2008 we started backing off of our hours for our guys, and some of our guys, you know, were complaining about not getting enough time, and they weren't making enough money, and I wasn't letting them work overtime and that kind of stuff, and we were struggling to just keep them busy and trying to figure out how to pay our bills too. But we kept doing side projects and farm projects and home stuff, trying to keep everybody busy and employed, thinking it would be over soon. And they got a little bit disgruntled with it, and several of them were able to land a couple of jobs, and so they packed up and left and went and started their own gigs. And 2 or 3 months later, when those jobs finished, they didn't have any other work lined up because they didn't have the ability to go out and get work in a normal economy, much less a recession. And they had never run a business before, so they didn't have credit, they didn't have those kind of things, and they still had room to grow as individuals and as managers. And anyway, long story short, they all came back, or a few of them came back wanting their job back, but by that time we had seen the writing on the wall, and we were up into the end of 08, early 09, and it was devastating to us, but we couldn't afford at that point to take them back. So they were on their own, we were on our own, and over the next 3 years we just struggled to keep things going the way they were going. And at the end of the day, we did some small construction jobs and some projects that we normally wouldn't have taken on, and ended up doing some remodels on prisons and stuff that was way outside of our comfort zone, but we managed to get through it and get it done and make a living. We raised vegetables on the side of the roads and sold produce at farmers markets and all kinds of things. But when the recession came back, or came out of the recession, we came out a lot stronger, and those guys that had left us in the middle of it or at the beginning of it, because they were frustrated with our way of pacing ourselves, they all had to go get jobs somewhere else, and they weren't any farther down the road as individuals, and they weren't any better prepared for life. They had just made one more bad decision, I guess you'd say. And that's, of course, my perspective. Their perspective might be different, I don't know, but I always felt sorry for people that jumped from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, always thinking it was just going to be better, but they would go about it the same way and end up with the same results, and it seemed like it was a pretty devastating thing to them down the road. But anyway, I feel like we're facing another recession coming up, and here we've got all these people that are angling for better jobs and new jobs. And no matter what industry you're in right now, if you're blessed to have a great job and a good job, and it's something that's stable normally, stick with it. Stick with the people that you know and the people you can trust, and that have you've built relationships with, and I believe that everybody's going to need those relationships, and we're going to have to depend on one another and be loyal to people, whether it's your church family or your own family, whether it's your work family. Treat them like family and be loyal to them. Employers, be loyal to your customers, be loyal to your employees. Treat them like they're your family. Don't just treat them like they're a number. Try to build the relationship that you need, because we really are all in this together. And at the end of the day, our relationships matter a whole lot more than the money we make, or the jobs we have, or the titles that we have, or the trucks we drive, or the homes that we buy, or the boats that we go to the lake on. It's the relationships that matter. And if you don't get anything else from this whole random speech, it's be loyal, because relationships matter. You guys have a great day.